9 out of 10 ideas will fail. That's the most important part. The problem is we forget that. We think that our ideas are right from the beginning. And then the question we ask ourselves generally is, how can we accelerate delivery? This question has value in it. It's not pointless. But I don't think it's the question that changed the game.
Welcome to the Product Weekend podcast with Brito, Moita, and João. We hope you enjoy.
Hi, welcome to the Product Weekend podcast. Today, with me, Rui Galvão Brito and João Moita. In this episode, we had a chance to talk with David Pereira, one of the most influential product leaders with over 15 years of experience and more than 90,000 followers over Medium, Substack, and LinkedIn. David is a product coach and CEO, currently at Omoco. We'll be talking about the relevance of discovery, some of the difference within being a CEO or product leader, and undoubtedly also talking a little bit about PO or PM. I'm sure you guys will like it, and please have fun. Perfect then. Let's get it started.
Let's do it.
Happy faces. Oh yeah, David. I don't know if you listened to our first episode, but we have one thing that's called the vibe check.
No, I haven't.
No, I'm just kidding.
That was just a joke in our episode 0 that we were saying that if you're coming as a guest, you need to perform a cool dance or something to pass the vibe check. But yeah, as it's the first few episodes, we are not going to be that high standard. So I think you can get away without the dance today.
It's almost as the founder code. So yeah, I'd like to ask you, what's a recent weekend that you can say you really enjoyed?
Recent weekend. I enjoy all weekends. There's no single weekend I don't enjoy. But this one was quite interesting. My mother-in-law was here and she is Russian, so she had quite a journey to get here because, as you know, it's not that easy as of now to come to Europe from Russia. And we spent a nice time together this weekend. We did different things, went to a lake and very spontaneous. And it was one of the few weekends that I didn't do anything on the social network like LinkedIn mainly. Generally, I schedule my posts, but this time I didn't even bother opening it. So it was quite relaxing.
That's good. Yeah, that's really good.
That's great.
And as you know, a lot of our listeners most likely already heard about you, but via Medium, via Substack, via your own LinkedIn page and everything that they are written. But could you give us a little of a flash introduction and a little bit of your background?
Sure. So let's say I am a person who believes that it's always to do something better than it is. So I keep challenging the status quo because I always believe that there's nothing too good that cannot become better. And there's nothing too bad that there's nothing for you to learn it from. So that's my general approach. Apart from that, I come from Brazil. I lived there most part of my life and I moved to Germany 6 years ago. I've been working in the digital product, I would say, environment for 15 years now, like from software engineer to product manager, head of products, product owner, different titles, CPO, CEO, different company size, startups, giant corporations, and so on. And from 2020, I started writing and I started writing different things. And the initial idea was just to share because I used to talk to people around me and they said, this is beneficial. Maybe we start sharing that more openly. And the idea was, as the name of my newsletter came later, but it's Untrapping Product Teams, was many people talk about the do's, so what you should do, what a good product management looks like. But I learned that reality is quite different. You always face a lot of things you don't understand if that's right or wrong. So I start talking about the don'ts, but not the don'ts about judging, about the don'ts that I did. So let's say I had to take a lot of blows because I was ill equipped for the job. Start writing about it, about my failures, and then that's what happened. I went on Medium from 0 subscribers to 90,000 in 2 years.
That's amazing. Congrats for that. So when you started doing that and you saw that growth, you put a lot more of your energy and your focus on that. What was your main driver, main motivation to keep growing that content creation part of your life?
Mhm. The feedback, seeing that mattered to some people. Some people
Right.
would tell me, you know, I read this article, it really resonated with me. It encouraged me to do something different. Someone would say, I used this here in the interview and I got the job. Another would say, it encouraged me to pursue a different route because I wasn't happy where I am and now I'm an entrepreneur. And that was the article. So I never really cared about the numbers itself. I was not really looking at the numbers. I was looking to see what drove more resonance with people. So that's what
Right.
interested me. But this feedback kept pushing me and motivating to do more and more. Because I think after 6 months of writing, I said, I don't have any other thing to share. I didn't know what to share anymore. And then I started reading the comments and said, maybe I go more to this direction here and here. And
Yeah.
now it's always something coming in and again. So I quite enjoy that. So, and also it helped me structure my mind. So now it's easier for me to go straight to the point when I'm trying to coach a team, trying to coach another person, and so on. So, some
Mhm.
things I already matured how I think. So, I don't need to go all over the place to
Yeah.
make points. So, that helped me also a lot.
Yeah, that's great. Recent story related to that, that someone that listened to a previous conversation of ours that got a PM job because of that, or partially because of that, of course. We didn't do the interview for them. But yeah, that feedback part, it's definitely something that I really,
Rewarding.
really empathize with. Yeah.
And actually, I just want to one more question regarding this. How do you feel the difference here? So, how do you feel your work as a PM was impacted by the work that you start delivering for social media, if you can say that?
So, when I started writing, I was a senior product manager. What helped me actually was broadening my perspectives. So, of course, I had perspective on some things, some were based on opinions and experience, but more people connected with me. And I could learn from people all over the world, Australia, USA, Netherlands, Sweden, and hearing like how they do product management in different places. And that gave me, I would say, different opportunities to try something other than I was aware of. And what I realized during that point is I simply didn't know what I didn't know. So it would come up something totally different. I said, "Ooh, so people are doing this. Well, what about trying that?" And so on. So writing was not only about sharing, but improving and opening doors. So that was something quite cool that helped my career. And I think it's one of the reasons actually, yeah, it is one of the reasons that I ended up where I am right now. Because if I hadn't started writing, I wouldn't have met so many people and created the Agile Product Manifesto, which resonated with the former CTO of the company I am right now. He only got me to talk to them because of the Agile Product Manifesto.
Things really do come for us when we chase luck.
Yeah.
So we all know that we can say a lot of different shades and put a lot of different textures regarding product management. And this time I got it right, Moita. But but generally, how do you define the role of a product manager?
It's something quite interesting. So now I have one definition, but I had different definitions over my life. So I will give the three definitions that I came up with. So my first definition was the bridge between business and technology. So you would understand business and be able to talk the tech language. So people would create things that the business wanted and would serve the customers. And I was very happy about it because I could talk both languages and I thought that was my role. But there was a mistake in this positioning. I was putting myself in a higher level than the team, like trying to get them like to execute things. I was diminishing them. They were not learning something from the users. I was kind of shielding them. So I learned that, and then I moved to another, and I called as the orchestra conductor, like a maestro. You don't play any instrument, but you need to ensure that the music result is
Mhm.
beautiful. So I needed to ensure that the team was working in a way we would create beautiful products and so on. And I was empowering them to play the music. I was just giving them the rhythm, and I was giving them like how we do it. But this case, I became the bottleneck. So when I was not there to play the music, if it would be a good orchestra, yes, they can play without the maestro. But sometimes I didn't leave the guys prepared to play without me, so it would cause confusion. So then I changed. What I realize now is like the product manager is more like a jazz player. So you come, you start the music, and then you let the others join with you. It's a kind of improvisation and build on top of each other. What matters here is the context. You set the context, you set the velocity, not the velocity of output, but of how you play this game. So you play with the team, so you're on the same level as them, but you're a very good communicator and building on top of each other's ideas. So that's what I see as a good product manager. But that's my definition as of now. I don't say it's final. I may come up with something else over the years.
Yeah, and you started regarding a little bit more for the PO, and what could you consider to be the difference, if you do think that exists within a PO and a PM? Let's go for one of those hot topics.
This is one, depends who you ask, depends what people work with. So my definition is very simple. It's a confusion. So PO, product owner, is now an accountability inside Scrum. And that would be best fueled by an experienced product manager. So what I say is both shouldn't coexist. It should be one or the other, doesn't matter the title, but with end-to-end responsibility. But what I see in the industry is quite different. Generally, the product owner is the responsible for the execution, and the product manager is responsible for the strategy part. So it's kind of this: the product manager uncovers what, and the PO executes on that. So the product manager defines what is the right thing to do, and the product owner leads the team to do the thing right. Why do I believe that doesn't work? Because I was in this scenario. I was a product owner and I was a product manager. I was on both sides of the coin. And it's a blame game. As a product owner, if we would fail to deliver the outcome, the product manager would say, poor decision making, poor delivery. And I would say, poor decision making, what you decided us to deliver is bad. As a product manager, I would just do the same. So it doesn't work. And the problem is like that some frameworks are structured this way. There is this guy called SAFe. I think it's the safest way of failing agile. It's something like this, the undercover waterfall agent. I think it's designed this way that you have these roles. So I know that many people work like that. It doesn't work because you try solving a complex problem by adding more complexity, and you don't solve complexity by adding more of it. You should add simplicity.
That's right. It's interesting what you mentioned. So as you see it, product owner is an accountability, so a role in a Scrum team that should be filled by a product manager, which is someone that enables the team and also understands the business language. And for sure, many companies work like that with SAFe, with a scaled agile framework, with product managers and product owners working separately and eventually blaming each other, as you were saying. How do you think one company that has this setup can go into the other scenario, which is empowers product managers that also do the product ownership role?
Mhm.
Because I haven't experienced like working in a big corporation, but looking from outside, it seems a bit like too complex to have just one person doing everything. How do you handle that balance?
Yeah. Generally, it's too complex because of the size of responsibility given to a product manager. In a bigger organization, it's not uncommon to see teams with 9 or 10 people. And I can tell you that two teams of 5 people will by far outperform a team with 10 people because communication gets too complex with more people you have in. So what is better is, for example, instead of having bigger teams, you reduce the size of the team and you reduce the responsibility, but you give end-to-end responsibility. So instead of having a PM with a big chunk of responsibility of the product, reduce the responsibility, but give end to end. So that
Right.
works better and reduce the size of the team.
Mhm.
5 people, 4 people can work pretty well. I remember in one of the places I worked, I had end to end responsibility. And for a long time, it was me. There was a scrum master, I was a product manager, 3 software engineers, and a designer. Team quite small, but it was so fast how things happen. And in
Mm.
another situation, I was in a team. Of course, by the book would be wrong, but there were 12 people
Oof.
who didn't work at all and start working once we actually split the team into 3 teams. It was way better.
Dang, that's interesting. Yeah, I see that's the way to go. So reducing the scope of each team, or so, and respectively of each product manager slash
Yeah.
product owner, and like vertical slicing the work, right? Giving each person like a slice of the whole product that goes end to end. That makes sense.
Yeah, the person needs to have a full experience responsibility, so to say. So the vertical slicing, of course, can be a bit dangerous because it can cause more dependencies. So it depends how you play the game. This is very contextual based, so it depends on the product and so on. But it's important that teams can work with as minimum dependency on others as possible. I wouldn't say totally independent because some scenarios are generally impossible to move from a dependent team to independent from one day to the other. So it requires some transition phase, but need to reduce dependency.
Why do you think that when you split those teams, what was the biggest change for good that you felt? It was regarding communication. So communication was quite simple right now on those moments. So it really had a huge impact, or any other factor.
Decision making, also accountability. So with smaller teams, decision making happen faster, and also reducing of the confusion that happens with bigger teams. I remember everything would take long. Let's take a simple refinement session. Refinement was draining the energy of everyone, and the decision was let's have 3 refinements: one UX refinement, one product refinement, and one tech refinement. Because not everyone could be there. I said, no, that makes no sense at all. We are a team. I said, yeah, but we are wasting time. And the problem is because you know what happened? We started discussing a lot how to do the work instead of
Work.
doing the work. So with a smaller team, we didn't even bother. Said, let's just do it, and then we learn from it, and then we sync because synchronization was not painful anymore. It was simple. We would just talk to each other during the day and say, "Here, that's what happened. Let's move on." But with 12 people, this conversation just doesn't go.
You are getting to what we also aimed for here. Let's start talking a little bit about product discovery. We know it's a topic that you are really into and that you really, well, has a lot of them, but you really have a lot of things to teach us. How could you define better product discovery? Why do you think it's so critical during our development, like in a product development process? Why it's crucial for us?
9 out of 10 ideas will fail. That's the most important part. The problem is we forget that. We think that our ideas are right from the beginning. And then the question we ask ourselves generally is how can we accelerate delivery? This question has value in it. It's not pointless. But I don't think it's the question that changed the game. The question that is very important is how fast can we drop bad ideas? And that's what product discovery solves.
Faster delivery without discovery, it's just being faster at delivering crap, right?
At
Yeah.
failing.
A shit factory.
How can startups like with really limited size, people, everything, money, how should they approach product discovery? And do you think this should be really different from a established and big enterprise? Or by the end of the day, discovery is discovery and things should be the same?
Discovery is more like a journey, and you are the driver. So you decide if you go forward, backward, take a left or right turn. What happens is people try to find a process that will ensure that you do the discovery right. This is going to go wrong. So I don't see a lot of difference between startups and well-established corporations. The difference, I would say, is in the data sample you can have. And if you do discover wrong in a bigger organization, take Amazon for example, you can have a very negative side effect. Imagine you try putting a hacked feature, let's say a hacked feature live just to test how it goes. But if you put that for 5% of your audience, we're talking about millions. So you can cause an impact in millions of customers. You need to play the game a little bit differently and be more careful with that. But product discovery, it needs to start simple, and people try overthinking about it. I give an example. You said that I talk a lot about product discovery. I created this cohort called Product Discovery Done Right. But the very truth is, I didn't start with the cohort at all. I started with an article, and I wanted to test how my take on discovery would resonate with people. So I started doing that, and then I saw that people started getting interested in it. So my next step was to put a survey in one of my articles and see if people would be willing to attend to a course from me, and if so, what kind of course. So I saw the feedback. I got of hundreds of replies. Said, all right, that sounds interesting. And I said, let's get serious. I created a landing page and I put a payment method. And I didn't have the course. I just had the landing page. And I said, if 10 people subscribe in 2 weeks, I create a course. If not, then I need to change the landing page and something is going wrong. What happened is I got 10 people in 1 week subscribing to the Product Discovery Done Right cohort that didn't exist. I didn't have a single slide for that. There was nothing at all. There was the questions that I would answer during this cohort, and I wanted to test if people wanted answers for those questions, and then I put it live, and then after that I said, okay, now I need to create this.
Yeah.
So that's product discovery for a product discovery course.
Wow. Based on this, can you also help us and share some of the best practice that when you're conducting, for example, user interviews or surveys, as you just talked about, first, should you use them as part of the product discovery? I will assume yes. What are some of the best practices?
Surveys are useful, but they can be dangerous, because when you are doing the survey, it means you know the questions. So generally, I suggest starting with interview to uncover opportunities. And the interviews are one of the most beneficial for uncovering the unknowns. You're not trying to prove if you're right, trying to validate your idea. You're trying to see if there's a need for something you're trying to solve. So, like Teresa Torres says a lot on her talks and also on the continuous discovery habit, like ask about stories and then you dig deeper. This is the most important of an interview. But when I watch some interviews, I see all the time about the wood question. If we would have a product like this, how would you use it? This question has nothing to do, will give you no insights, because what we say we would do and what we do is totally different, because we always picture our best selves. It's like asking like, what would you eat during the weekend if you are trying to lose weight? I would say I would eat some salad, I would avoid carbs and so on. And I would say all of these things. But the truth, for example, once I start the breakfast, I see bacon in the fridge. I'm going to get the bacon. I'm going to eat that directly because I love that. So that's what's going to happen. But if you ask a story, okay, so last weekend, what was your breakfast, lunch, and dinner? How was that? And then you say, when you decide to eat bacon, tell us more about it. So you start digging deeper into the story, then you get insights, and then you see where you could influence on something. You get stories and so on. And then you, after interviewing like maybe 6 to 10 people, you start knowing the answers already. So that's the moment a survey can be beneficial, because then you know the questions and then you want to see if the direction you are taking is the right one. The survey will only give you the direction. So these are different experiments. Then you say, what am I gonna do now? You can try different things. For example, you can try a Wizard of Oz. I like this one because a Wizard of Oz is a kind of fake it until you can make it. So you put something in front of people, and then behind the curtains, there are a lot of things happening, but it's just for a few people. But it's kind of you hack a solution to learn faster. Or for example, concierge, you are the product, become the product. And then you see how it works. Then once you become the product, you can create a product. So it is more like about being curious, trying to prove yourself wrong, trying to see like, what is the thing that I don't know? There's something I don't know. I want to learn that. And generally, people try to prove themselves right. And then they are sad when they prove themselves wrong. I'm actually quite happy when I learn something that it
Saves
didn't
you
work.
money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That saves a lot of money.
Velocity of learning. Also, like one quote that I find super useful. It's from the Mom Test, the book. You probably heard of it,
Yes.
which is ask about specifics about the past and not hypothetics about the future, which is what most people do with those with questions that you just said.
You said something quite interesting, the loss of learning. Recently, I listened to, to the third version of Running Lean by Ash Maurya. It's from 2022, and it's quite good. And one thing that stuck with me is like the unfair advantage, because there's this part of the on the lean canvas. What is your unfair advantage? And he said that nowadays the unfair advantage is how fast you can learn. Your learning speed is the best unfair advantage you can have. Discovery.
That's a
That's
good one.
discovery.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up on that. Like one of the challenges, I think you already mentioned it, that people overthink it and try to think, oh my god, we have this whole thing, product discovery, we've never done anything like this, we have no clue how to start it. So you hire people just to come give talks, and then you talk with more people, and you keep going in this loop, figuring out how to do it instead of just jumping and doing it. So I guess the first advice is start small and start with something right away. But then my question is how to turn this first iteration. So if someone picks some of the suggestions that you already gave, like this interviews or the Wizard of Oz or whatever it is, how do you turn that into a continuous habit that you keep doing week after week?
My advice is actually even a little bit different. Most teams that I know are somehow trapped in a kind of feature factory with different variations of that.
Mm-hmm.
And they are very powerless to change how they work. But there is one thing they can do. They can look at the feature and ask them, what are we assuming to happen right here? What are we assuming? We are assuming that customers will understand how to use it. We are assuming that customers will actually use it. We're assuming they are paying for that. So say, all right, let's name the assumptions first. Because these, they don't need to ask for any permission. They can name all the assumptions, and they can say, if one of these assumptions here are proved false, will this feature still become successful? And if you say these three here, for example, no, just go to the business stakeholder and say, here's what we learned. We have no idea if these things are true or not. Do you have any evidence supporting that? And then they will probably say, apart from talking to my wife or to my kid, I don't. Or they will say something, my experience tells me it's the right thing. And you can say the cost of building this feature probably is going to be 2 weeks of work, but we could run an experiment here, just interviewing some people, and then learn from there. So I just say that the entry point to product discovery is asking, what are we assuming to happen here? And then you go from there, because this is using the cards you have that will give you the cards you don't, because you do this and you can run experimentation. Then it comes another feature to you, do the same, then you run experimentation again, and then you see what is going to happen, that many features will proven wrong. So you are either not going to build them because they make no sense,
Yeah.
or you're going to build them differently. Then the stakeholders will say, how can we actually change this engine? Because it makes no sense to start defining features if all the time we hit this, we face the same thing. Then you say, aha, so here we go. Then it's where you introduce more like a more robust product discovery. But
Yeah.
start from the assumptions.
Yeah. Assumption mapping is permissionless, right?
Yes.
And I just add a small thing, which is thinking of like desirability, viability, and feasibility in order to think of all
Sure.
the aspects. Otherwise, you may focus too much on one of the areas and forget the others.
That's totally
Depending,
true.
like engineers will probably not think that much about some of the other components.
So you have started your product management career around 15 years ago. How do you see the evolution of the career?
So when I started was for sure seen as a bridge where I was. I was in Brazil. And the reason I started being a product manager, it's a very funny one because I I wanted to improve my English and I was living in Brazil, but I didn't have enough money to study abroad. So I found a way of doing an immersion course in Brazil, 7 days. And the last day, I had to present something. I said, I'm going to present my work. So it's the easiest thing. And I was a software engineer by then. What I didn't know is one of the attendants was a CEO in Sao Paulo. I'm from a small town in Brazil. And then after this presentation, the guy came to me and said, I like how you talk. You make complex things simple. I want you to work with me. I have some trouble there because I don't understand what these guys from IT are talking about. I'm a finance guy. I don't know these things. And I think you could help me with that. And they have this position, product owner, and then you would help me. So it was seeing the position as part of IT. So I would be this guy in IT. And then over time, I move on and so on. And I start seeing the product manager closer to the business side. And I start seeing actually product management becoming the business itself. As Marty Kagan says, like the product is not a support area anymore, it is the business itself. So nowadays, I see way more relevance in product and taking it more serious. So giving more space. Before I had to collect requirements from stakeholders. That was my job. I had to ask what they wanted. And I had to take requirements, write in the backlog, and they had to approve. If they didn't approve, I couldn't move on. Now, actually, we collaborate. That's what I see. It's more collaborative way than coordinative. That's what's supposed to happen. Not all
Mhm.
places have been through the same evolution, so to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in general, product management, I say that the magic of product management is transform all of this communication into something that drives value for the business and for customers for both sides, and it's something good. So it's fine in this place. So that's what I see happening now.
I guess you've heard this critic, especially from product owners, haters, saying that they are glorified backlog managers.
Yes,
And
I
in
have.
your case, you are actually a glorified translator, right? You're making the translations for the tech team.
Yeah, but I kept the backlog quite shiny and beautiful and long. And it's interesting about the word product owner. Some people already dropped me a message saying, hey, why don't you stop talking about product owners? It's about product manager. I say that's the reason I keep talking about product owners because they should be the product managers as well. And I know that many people here in Germany, they have a contract signed that they are product owners. So I want to help these people to break free from all of these anti-patterns. They are not backlog owners. They are product managers. They lead teams from end to end. So that's the reason I
Yeah.
keep using this, although I don't connect to any of the names, product owner or product manager. Product owner, you don't own anything. Product manager, you don't manage anyone. I think a better term would be product lead, but doesn't matter. It's about the responsibility itself.
I actually saw that post that you made some time ago, exactly about that topic that you don't want to leave these people helpless. And I think that's a very good point that there are many people that are working in this position. And if they don't keep hearing about it, about how it can be different, it will stay the same and they will stop believing that it's possible to work in a different way. So yeah, congratulations for and keep up that good work.
Yeah, and keeping up with this, now that you are into a CEO role, and it's pretty common to hear that product managers are the CEO of their products. What do you think of this and how it resonates with being a CEO of a company, not the product itself?
Well, I think the term is quite misleading and distracting because it positions the product manager in a higher level than the team members, and that would hurt collaboration. I think the product manager, a good one, would have the skills like decision making, leadership, communication of a CEO. So I say, like, you need to adapt your communication depending on the audience you are talking. You need to make decisions fast, and you should ensure that the team knows the context. These are skills very similar to what CEOs would have, but the mandate, it's different. So a product manager cannot tell a software engineer like, this is how you do it. No, you need to lead by context, and so on and so on. And what I see the challenge is, yes, some people go as a product manager, product owner within the hope of being the CEO of the product, but then you hit the corporate firewall, prescriptive roadmaps, deadlines, and pressure to deliver more output. And how do you deal with that? So that is the biggest challenge. And now, wearing the shoes of a C level, what I see the difference is it's very easy to trap the teams. Because if I would do what investors or others want, it's a plan. Everyone wants a plan, a beautiful plan, where you say what to deliver by when. But that's a problem, because I would be the worst person in the company to make these decisions, because I don't know. I simply don't know. The best ones to define that would be the team. The most important for me is to understand the market. Where are we positioning ourselves? How are we differentiating? And create a space where great ideas can happen. So I need to ensure that the team has clarity on what matters and what doesn't matter, who we are serving and who we are not serving, and why. And then I empower them to do that. But it's hard work to do that, because then you have this ambiguity. And happens when? What happens when? And I say, hey, the market size is this, and we aim to buy 10% of this market size in this time frame. That's all we should care about now. And what we are doing now, we are getting some customers and we are proving market fit and so on. When are we going to do that? I don't know. But we have a run rate of X years. Just let us get the job done. Because I say, the more we talk about getting the job done, the less we can actually do the job.
I think that's a great, great insight
Yeah.
on.
I think it's time for our sprint questions. David, one digital product you would struggle to live without?
Let me think. I write quite a lot, and communicating well and beautifully would be very important to me. So, Grammarly.
Oh, nice one. What's the most underrated skill in product management?
Resilience.
And finally, if you could shadow any product manager or leader for a day, who would it be?
Oh, this one interesting. Many people are coming to my mind, but I'm trying to connect to the why. It's quite an interesting question. I'm just thinking who I would shadow for a day. If I would shadow a leader, I think I would like to shadow Satya Nadella from Microsoft, because he made a huge transformation on Microsoft, on everything that I have been doing there. It's not that I'm a big fan of Microsoft, but what he did there is tremendous. Not only about adding revenue and so on, but bringing the identity of the company back. I read a lot about him, so I'm very curious how he made that possible.
That's great. Microsoft is really transforming again.
I saw an announcement from Microsoft about some new AI features which look amazing and really, really powerful. But my question is, when will they start using this AI intelligence to improve their UX? Because it's still so terrible, some parts of it.
The reason I said I'm not a big fan exactly, but the transformation that happened, I admire.
Yeah.
One key thing we talked a lot today about discovery, I'm quite clear. Microsoft has a very good rate of ideas that succeed. It's 33. Actually, the benchmark generally is around 10%. For example, Netflix has 8% of ideas that that become successful. And Microsoft is on the 33. Yeah. Don't know what they do exactly, but of course they have a lot of room to improve usability.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
They're making their steps there. Let's see what happens. Moita, Do we have our release notes?
Yeah, let's try. There were a lot of things. So also, David, we always try to have release notes, and listeners, please give us feedback if you feel like this part is useless. Let us know, because it's a bit of a pain in the ass to keep taking notes, but let's see if it's helpful. But yeah, some of the things that we talked about. So we started about creating content and how it helps to mature how you think, and also to get feedback, and also to learn from more people around the world. I think that's a great insight and a valuable thing for anyone that's considering starting putting out more content. Then, regarding the definition of a product manager, David shares three concepts. Two of them, the first two are the bridge between business and technology. The problem with that is that it puts the PM in a higher level than the team. It hurts collaboration. And the orchestra conductor, the problem with that is that this person becomes the bottleneck. The better definition is the jazz player. So start playing and help others join in by setting the rhythm and the context. It's a great analogy. Yeah, the PO, the product owner, it should be a role within a Scrum team that should be filled by an experienced product manager. And in order to achieve this, to have one person doing the end-to-end responsibility of product management, we should split teams into smaller teams and give each team end-to-end responsibility. And David, while I'm talking, if I'm misunderstanding anything, help us give the clearest overview to our listeners.
No, sounds clear.
Regarding product discovery, 9 out of 10 ideas fail, and a lot of people and teams struggle to get started, and they overcomplicate what product discovery can be. So one good advice is not to overthink it and start simple. And the main difference between a small and a big company is the data reach and the amount of data that you work with. In terms of the processes and the way you do it, there's not so much of a difference. And it's good to start with interviews to uncover opportunities, ask things about specifics in the past and not hypothetics about the future. Now I'm quoting what I brought to the table, but I think it was exactly the message that David wanted to share. And only by then bring surveys. Otherwise, if we use surveys too early, we may be just trying to validate our assumptions without uncovering all the opportunities. And another very important aspect, and kudos to you, David, for that, is keep talking about product owners and that their role can be much more than just a backlog administrator. It should take into consideration what needs to be built, thinking about how it will impact the business and so on. Yeah, finally, about the CEO versus product manager discussion, it can be a very misleading conception, and it can hurt collaboration if you see product managers on a different level than the rest of the team. And from your experience as a CEO, you also understood how easy it can be to fall into the build trap because of the pressure of having a specific plan and release dates and all these things. So it's something to I think it's good to be aware of that, especially when you're dealing with leaders and C-level people, having also a bit of empathy on why they want these plans. They have this pressure for that to happen. So yeah, I hope I covered mostly everything. It was a very, very interesting conversation. Thank you so much, David. And yeah, did I miss anything?
I think it was top notch. Thank you, Moita, for this. Thank you for being a perfect sidekick. And David, thank you for being here with us. Awesome talking with you. A lot of insights, a lot of insights.
Welcome. Glad it resonated. Hope it resonates with the audience too.
All right. Thank you. See you next time.
See you
Goodbye.
then. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Product Weekend podcast. In our next episode, we'll be talking with Dr. Nancy Lee. Please follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. And also, Feel free to check our social media to know more about the Product Weekend and the Product Weekend podcast. See you!